welcome back. Let me ask you something that most men never stop to consider. What does a woman do when you stop reaching out? What starts as a quiet silence on your end often triggers a storm of emotions on hers, some obvious, many hidden beneath the surface. When communication ends, something unexpected happens. Her mind begins to wander, her heart questions quietly, and a pattern emerges, one that reveals far more about her true feelings than anything she said while you were still in touch. She'll feel relieved, or will your absence haunt her thoughts in ways she never expected? In this article, we're peeling back the layers of her emotional response. What she thinks, what she hides, and what she might do next when your presence turns into silence. This isn't about tricks or mind games. It's about understanding a deeply human reaction that many men overlook. So stay with me until the end, because what you're about to learn could change how you see silence and the power it holds. -1. The initial shock of silence. Silence replacing presence rarely goes unnoticed, especially during early romantic tension or emotional connection. The sudden disappearance of a man's attention doesn't just fade quietly, it reverberates in a woman's inner world with startling clarity, evident in casual or lighthearted connections. This disruption unsettles her expectations. Her mind, used to a certain rhythm of interaction, starts scanning the void for meaning. This isn't about fragility, it's about the architecture of attachment. The female psyche, attuned to patterns and emotional attunement, instinctively notices when presence goes quiet. She might glance at her phone repeatedly, not out of longing, but as part of a subconscious loop seeking coherence. The message thread lies dormant, and in that stillness, her thoughts begin to stir. Humans crave resolution, especially during unexpected silence. Without it, she revisits past conversations, micro moments, facial expressions, pauses in your voice, anything to find a thread to pull on. This isn't necessarily missing you, it's a psychological need to reconcile a narrative that suddenly feels broken. Contrary to the stereotype that women are emotionally dependent on male attention, this stage reflects a deeper, universal truth. People crave emotional symmetry. Sudden lack of feedback disrupts balance and triggers a mental search, not for validation but understanding. Was it something she said? Did she miss a shift? Or was the connection never as mutual as it seemed? She might reassure herself with benign explanations: haze, busy, distracted, overwhelmed. The mind prefers these before facing rejection or ambiguity. But if silence stretches, reassurance fades, and curiosity turns to discomfort, it's not that she can't be without you, it's that she doesn't know what she means to you. Psychologists have long noted that ambiguity causes more stress than clear rejection. Knowing you've been rejected offers at least emotional clarity. Silence leaves space for endless interpretation without answers. Her mind crafts hundreds of silent stories. This phase isn't about clinging or chasing, it's about confronting the absence of rhythm where music once played. The sudden stop of emotional exchange can echo louder than confrontation, and in those echoes, she begins quietly concluding, some fair, some flawed, but all human. -2. The self-reflection spiral. Left long enough, silence becomes a mirror. In its stillness, it reflects absence and meaning, real or imagined. For many women, a man's withdrawal rarely meets indifference. It sparks a shift, subtle at first, then deeper confusion folds into introspection. She begins questioning what was shared, what the bond really meant. Emotional connection doesn't simply fade with distance, it sharpens when a man disengages without explanation. Her first impulse isn't blame, but self-examination. Late in solitude, questions rise. Did she say something wrong? Did she emotionally invest too much or too little? Women taught to read between silences and expressions often internalize the burden of connection. His quiet, she hears echoes, hesitation in her voice, guarded smiles, unfinished stories. Suddenly, those moments matter. This spiral isn't just regret, it's a place where vulnerability and maturity meet. She may mourn not only the man but the version of herself that hesitated to speak, feel freely, or appreciate what was while it lasted. Here, regret is not collapse but reckoning. There's no certainty, only emotional weight. Rediscovered. Her longing may not be for reconciliation, but clarity to understand what mattered and why it ended. Silence is never just absence of words, it's the start of meaning-making. For women, meaning rarely forms without emotional ink. When a connection matters, it lingers as unanswered questions, memories that feel unfinished. This process is often invisible to the man who stepped away, but inside her, a quiet reckoning happens. A reconciliation not only with his absence, but with her own emotional architecture. Whether she returns or lets go, she has journeyed inward, reshaping how she'll show up next time. Man, that perhaps is the true echo of a man's silence. 3. The emotional tug-of-war. When a man's presence fades into silence, a subtle but powerful shift occurs in the emotional atmosphere of the woman who once felt seen and understood. It's not just the loss of communication that unsettles her, it's the meaning that fills the void, where his words used to be uncertainty. Settles questions echoed. This emotional tug-of-war is neither dramatic nor easily expressed, but its effects are unmistakably at first. Pride takes over. She may convince herself his silence means indifference and therefore deserves no responsive. He doesn't care, why should I? That thought becomes armor, maintaining control and dignity. But behind this wall, other emotions stir: disappointment, quietly arrives, not because he left but because something in her hoped he would. In his withdrawal, create space where previously managed or dismissed feelings come forward. This is the crossroads where many women find themselves, a split between self-protection and vulnerability. The push to move on battles with the pull to look back. Her day continues, her smile remains, but her thoughts circle his absence. Replays conversations not to find blame, but clarity. She recalls how he listened, the tone he used when discussing important things. Small details become threads to something more significant than she admitted before. Here, emotional memory becomes powerful. Women, attuned to emotional texture, carry impressions long after events. She notices his absence in quiet moments before sleep, after laughter, when she instinctively wants to share something. She doesn't reach out, not because she stopped feeling, but because vulnerability feels heavy. Society has taught her to wait to be chosen, to never seem too eager, so instead she watches, wonders, reevaluates. Emotional detachment isn't apathy, it's caution. Silence makes her question if she imagined the connection, if it mattered only to her, but the questions themselves reveal it. If she didn't care, she wouldn't wonder, and if it meant nothing, his absence wouldn't leave a space she keeps revisiting. As time passes, her perception sharpens. She begins to separate reality from projection. But even then, she can't ignore the emotional imprint left behind. A woman's heart doesn't move on simply because a man disappears. It moves on when meaning fades in. Sometimes meaning lingers long after words are gone. So, when she doesn't call, it doesn't mean she isn't thinking. When she doesn't reach out, it doesn't mean she doesn't feel. What happens to a woman when you stop reaching out? What begins as a quiet silence on your end often ignites a complex storm of emotions within her, some visible, many deeply hidden beneath the surface. You see, when communication ends abruptly, something unexpected begins to unfold inside her mind and heart. Her thoughts start to wander, her feelings begin to question, and slowly a pattern emerges. This pattern reveals far more about her true emotions than any words she spoke when you were still in touch. Will she feel relief, or will your absence haunt her thoughts in ways she never anticipated? In this article, we'll peel back the layers of her emotional response, what she thinks, what she hides, and what she might do next when your presence fades into silence. This isn't about games or manipulation, it's about understanding a deeply human reaction that many men overlook. Stay with me until the end, because what you're about to learn could change the way you view silence and the powerful effect it holds. 1. The initial shock of silence. In silence that replaces presence rarely goes unnoticed, especially in the early stages of emotional or romantic connection. The sudden disappearance of a man's attention doesn't just fade into the background, it reverberates through a woman's internal world with startling clarity. When the relationship seemed casual or lighthearted, this disruption unsettles the rhythm she's come to expect. Her mind, used to a certain cadence of interaction, those regular texts, calls, and shared moments, begins to scan the void for meaning. This early shock isn't about fragility, it's about the architecture of attachment. The female psyche, finely attuned to patterns of connection, instinctively recognizes when someone important goes quiet. She might find herself glancing at her phone during routine moments, not out of desperation but as part of a subconscious loop, seeking coherence. That once active message thread now lies dormant, and in that stillness her thoughts stir. Her human brain craves resolution, especially in unexpected silence. Without answers, she replays past conversations, picking apart facial expressions, pauses in your voice, anything that might offer a thread to pull on. This process isn't necessarily about missing you. It's about a psychological need to reconcile a narrative suddenly fractured. Contrary to stereotypes that paint women as emotionally dependent on male attention, this stage reflects a deeper truth. People are wired for emotional symmetry. A sudden lack of response disrupts balance, and so her mind embarks on a search, not for validation but for understanding. Was it something she said? Did she miss a shift? Or was the connection never as mutual as it seemed? Often she will rationalize this silence may be, "He's just busy, distracted by work, overwhelmed by life." The mind prefers benign explanations before facing the sting of rejection or ambiguity. But if the silence stretches on, those reassurances begin to fade and curiosity deepens into discomfort. Not because she can't be without you, but because she doesn't know what she means to you. Psychologists note that ambiguity in relationships causes more stress than clarity. Rejection, painful as it is, at least offers a clear path to follow. But when contact just disappears, the open-ended silence invites overthink. Her mind becomes the author of countless silent stories, none confirmed, all imagined. This stage isn't about clinging, it's about confronting absence in a space where connection once thrived. The sudden stop of emotional exchange echoes louder than confrontation ever could, and in those echoes she begins the quiet work of concluding, some fair, some flawed, but all profoundly human. To the self-reflection spiral, if the silence persists, it morphs into a mirror, one reflecting not only absence, but meaning, real or imagined. For many women, the withdrawal of a man's presence is rarely met with indifference. It prompts a subtle, yet deep shift that often unfolds over time. What starts as confusion folds into introspection. She begins questioning the nature of what was shared. Did the emotional bond ever truly matter? Distance doesn't always dull feelings, it often sharpens them. Theirs. A pattern familiar to many women. When a man disengages without explanation, the first impulse is not anger or blame, but self-examination. Questions rise uninvited in the quiet hours. Did she say something wrong? Did she push too hard or not enough? Women trained socially and emotionally to read between the lines often internalize the burden of connection. In his silence she hears echoes of moments she might have missed before, a hesitation in her own voice, a guarded smile, a story left unfinished. These moments suddenly gain weight and meaning. This spiral isn't just regret, it's a landscape where vulnerability and maturity meet. A woman, reflecting on what was lost, may not only mourn him but also a version of herself, one that hesitated, held back feelings, or failed to fully appreciate what was within reach. Regret here is not collapse, but reckoning. There's no certainty in her conclusions, only the ache of rediscovered emotions. Often misunderstood, her longing may not be for reconciliation, but for clarity, to understand what mattered and why it ended. Silence is never merely the absence of words. It is the beginning of meaning-making, and for women, meaning is almost always drawn with emotional ink. When a connection holds significance, it doesn't dissolve quietly. It lingers in unanswered questions and memories that feel incomplete. This inner process is invisible to many men, but vital to her. Whether she chooses to return or let go, she has already embarked on an inward journey, reshaping how she will show up next time, and that, more than anything, is the true echo of your silence. 3. The emotional tug-of-war. When a man's presence quietly fades into absence, it triggers a subtle, yet powerful emotional shift. It's not just the loss of communication that unsettles her, it's the meaning that fills the void. Where your words used to be, uncertainty settles. In questions echo internally. The tug-of-war inside her isn't dramatic or easy to articulate, but it's unmistakably. At first, pride takes hold. She might scoff or shrug, convincing herself your silence means indifference and therefore deserves no response. If he doesn't care, why should I? This thought becomes her armor, preserving dignity and control. Yet behind this wall, other emotions stir. Disappointment enters quietly, not necessarily because you left, but because part of her once hoped you wouldn't. Your withdrawal opened space for feelings she had managed or dismissed before. This is the crossroads where many women find themselves caught between self-protection and vulnerability. The push to move on battles, the pull to look back. Her days continue. Her smile stays, but her mind circles the shape of your absence. She replays conversations, not hunting for blame, but clarity. She recalls your tone, the way you listened, the small details that now feel like threads connecting to something bigger than she realized. Emotional memory becomes a powerful force. Women, deeply attuned to emotional nuance, carry these impressions long after moments pass. She notices your absence in quiet spaces before sleep, after, whether she misread what mattered. Psychologists call this loss aversion, the tendency to feel the pain of losing something more deeply than the joy of gaining it. In relationships, this means she may not have fully appreciated your presence when it was available, but now, its absence is a source of unexpected discomfort. What once felt ordinary now returns to her memory as extraordinary. The way you listened, your steady tone, the ease in your words. She begins to see that what felt simple was, in fact, rare. This shift doesn't always lead to reaching out. She may never say the words aloud, but the regret lives on in subtle gestures. The way she pauses when your name appears, hesitates before deleting message threads she's already read many times, and carries quiet, unfinished thoughts long after the connection ends. The tragedy of regret is not the loss itself, but the clarity that comes too late. She realizes you weren't asking for much, just presence, interest, and the willingness to meet her halfway. But in the moments that mattered, she chose protection over vulnerability. And now that you've disappeared quietly, she sees how large a space you once filled. This isn't about chasing what's gone. It's about understanding what she once had. When a man walks away with quiet dignity, leaving no explanations or bitterness, what remains is reflection. His absence becomes a mirror. And in that mirror, she sees not only you but herself. Not only the past, but the weight of what went unspoken. In that stillness, regret becomes its own kind of echo, a reminder that silence, when it comes from the right person, can be deafening. 5. The move toward action or acceptance. There comes a moment, inevitable but often subtle, when a woman begins to move from wondering to knowing. This transition is quiet, marked not by fireworks or proclamations, but by small shifts, the softening of expectation, the easing of tension in her body, the decreasing frequency with which her fingers hover over her phone. The silence that once echoed like an unanswered question begins to settle, heavier, more certain. Not every woman responds the same way, but all are changed by absence. When a man withdraws, stops calling, replying, showing up emotionally, she first feels rupture and confusion. Did she say something wrong? Did she overstep? Is this a test? The female mind, trained to search for fault within herself, initially bears the burden. But as silence lengthens, so does her perspective. Anxiety slowly transforms into clarity. At this emotional crossroads, feeling becomes decision. Some women choose action. They don't act out of desperation or loss of dignity, but because something inside still pulses with unfinished connection. They send a message, not always a confession of love, but sometimes a simple hope you're well, or I saw this and thought of you. Beneath that simplicity lies a deeper question. Was I ever truly seen? If met with silence or indifference, she does not chase. Her clarity sharpens. She closes the door gently but firmly. Other women choose acceptance. They detach not because they want to, but because the emotional investment became too one's. They revisit past conversations, recognizing the ways they excused distance as mystery or restraint. They tell themselves the truth. A man who does not reach back has already let go. In this acceptance, she stops waiting and redirects her energy, not necessarily toward someone new, but toward herself. Acceptance isn't a denial of care. It's a quiet decision to stop waiting for something that won't come. Here, she often flourishes, not in defiance, but in peace. Her life fills the spaces where his presence lingered. She stops rereading old messages, stops replaying final conversations, and returns to herself. For a man who initiated silence, this stage holds immense insight. Whether she reaches out or withdraws, her reaction reveals the entire emotional architecture of how she valued him. If she reaches out, she offers grace, one last chance to make sense of distance. If she doesn't, it's not from lack of feeling, but from feeling enough to let go. Conclusion: when a man withdraws in silence, he does more than create distance, he creates a moment of truth. For many women, that silence speaks louder than